Hi everyone. How are you guys doing today? Hello. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm Stacy. I'm the communications director for Fringe. Thank you. Before we start, I'm just going to have Jen Crafts, our lovely host here today at Studio Stage, come up and give a little talk about her.
Welcome. I'm super excited that, is this the first Fringe workshop of the year? Yay, I'm excited that we have it. So I'm Jen Crafts, I'm the manager here at Studio Stage, and we are a Fringe venue. We love Fringe so much. And then my husband Greg and I run this together. We've actually been Fringe producers since year one. We also run Theater Unleashed, so we've always had a show at Fringe. Last year, Fringe was our first year as a venue management company, and we had 17 shows in here, and it was amazing. There was lines out the door, around the block. It was incredible. So I was super proud of all of our producers for getting out there and getting their shows known and getting people out here. So if you guys do want to talk to me all about being here, Cherise was here last year. I hope you say it was good. That was awesome. Obviously, it does not normally look like this right now. There is a production of the Scottish play in here tonight. It's actually their closing, so if you want to come see it, come check it out. Normally, these walls are not crazy graffiti. They're all just painted white. The floor is black. At Fringe, we've got curtains on either side to create some backstage area, and then we've got a permanently mounted projector, which we don't have up there right now. It's in our office because they have their own projector for the show, but the projector is included for everyone who rents here during Fringe. So most of our shows use projections on the site wall. You don't have to, but a lot of them do, and it looks amazing. So yeah, come talk to me. I'm happy to talk about Fringe and producing and helping you produce, or talk about here, or whatever you need. I'm happy to answer any questions. So correct. Enjoy.
We've got another Fringe venue in the house over here, Mr. Matt Quinn.
Oh, hey! It's so exciting to see people out so early. This is really exciting. Thanks to the Fringe for organizing all this. I'm also a Fringe venue manager. I've been venue managing for about 20 years. I've managed for every single year of the Fringe Festival. And I am very excited for people starting early. I've got a couple things I want to let you know about. We're having an open house next week, next Wednesday, November 8th, at Studio C, which is a great solo space if you want to come check that out. And also, I'm teaching a workshop, how to produce a Hollywood Fringe show, a 3-hour seminar on an overview of the entire Fringe, people have taken it. If you're interested in that, you can check out our website, theaterasylum.com, theater spelled with an ER, or meet me after this, and I've got some business cards and I'd love to talk to you. Thanks so much, and thank you.
There's a couple other Fringe staff members in the house I want to shout out to first, quick, before this is Matt Kamimura, our staff photographer. You will see him all over the place at Fringe. And then our producing director, Dave McKeever, is over behind the camera over here. So let's start. Thank you guys all for being here. I know it's like kind of an overwhelming process sometimes to do Fringe. Anybody first, like this would be their first Fringe if they're thinking about doing it? Okay, cool, very cool. So before let's just introduce ourselves and kind of talk about like your experience in theater and at Fringe particularly. So Jennie, would you like to start?
I'm Jennie Fahn, and my show last year was Under the Jello Mold. It was my second time doing Fringe. I've been part of a play previously, which was written by 4 different people, or 4 different groups of people, called 4 Tree Plays. 4 Tree Plays. So last year was my first solo play, and I won Best Solo Play. And I was nominated for a bunch of other things too. So that was a pretty cool experience. That was really cool. And actually, the show is still running because of that. That really helped propel the show to be able to run. So, speaking of which, you can see it actually tonight at 8 o'clock. I'll be there at the Whitefire Theater, and everybody here can get a discount using the word Fringe if you go to underthejellomold.com, $10. So cheaper than going to the movies and seeing Thor. So hopefully you can check that out. And I guess, is that good?
Yeah, that's great. Rasika?
Hi, I'm Rasika Mathur. Last year, my show was called, just this summer, it was called Hey Hollywood, My Hustle Has ADHD. And it was, that's the reaction most people have. And it was a scholarship winner. Thank you. And I think that motivated just a darn good year into, it's still happening right now. I mean, I'm here. You think I'm an expert. And so getting to do that was like a finish line because of really the material that we cover in the show. We'll probably go into more detail about that, right? Or is now the time?
You can talk a little bit about how you got involved in doing this right now, if you'd like, or we'll cover it later.
So I had always been watching Fringe for a couple of, 4 years before, and it was the time everybody comes out like ants who want food trucks, and it's so exciting because I came from Chicago, that's a theater scene, right? So when LA goes off like that, you want to be a part of it. So if you are, there's TV film, but if you, right, Matthew? Yeah. We talk about this in his workshop. If you really feel like you have a theater heart, then Fringe is your place. Either to start watching shows like crazy, or you're ready. You have the 10 pages. It really shouldn't be longer than that because time goes fast. But maybe you can start off with, there's supportive networks like LAFPI, which will do micro reads. You bring 1 page of your play, someone else will read it. You get to let go a little bit. But that's how writers can really appreciate writers, I think. And since that's kind of the focus of the panel today, I didn't really take those steps. I had performed a different version of my show at Whitefire. Brian Rasmussen is awesome. And he also said, just keep doing your play. I'm not like you, ADHD. You keep victory and then you stop. Yeah. So it's like 3 years later, let's do it at Fringe. But new things had happened in my life, so I updated the content. I'd had a breakthrough with my parents. It used to be called Mom, Dad, I have ADHD. So I was evolving the show along with myself. That's also something I learned to do. Maybe it's stuck right now, and give it to someone else to look at. Let them take you to the finish line, because we learned that this was about community. So it's just a great thing to get involved in.
And if any of you are interested in spreading the word about our scholarship program, we are taking applications for that right now. If you go to hollywoodfringe.org/scholarships, you can read all about that program. Just about increasing all sorts of diversity at Fringe and the people that are able to present their work here. And so it's November 27th, I believe, is the cutoff date for applications for that. If you or somebody you know might be interested in that, please share it with them. So Les, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Les Kurkendaal, and last year my show was Terror on the High Seas. I have been doing Fringe festivals though since 2000. And I've been doing this one since the beginning. So, and just there's Fringe festivals all over the world, like literally all over the world. And if you choose to, you can Fringe all year round. And so, I've been traveling doing Fringes for a while. And so when the Hollywood Fringe came here, I felt that, okay, finally a hometown Fringe, I better do it. And this is a great Fringe, and it's definitely worth getting involved with. Also, yeah, definitely apply for the scholar. If you fit the scholarship criteria, apply for that, because I was part of the scholarship committee last year. So it was great to see your show, because I remember reading the proposal, and it was really cool to see something start out as a proposal and end up. Yeah.
A finished product.
No, it was great. Oh my God. And it was great, and it was great for me going to see all the shows, because it's like I was like, oh my God, I had something to do with this. So it was so yeah, if you guys fit the criteria, definitely apply for it. And you know what, I'll talk later.
Hi, I'm Cherise. I'm a writer and performer of Herpes a Love Story. Am I an actress? No. Am I an actress now? I guess so, because I've done Fringe now. I'm a writer. I went to film school, so naturally I went and did a one-woman show, or a one-man show, one-person show after finishing film school, because I had herpes and I couldn't deal with it anymore. I actually studied to be a doctor, and that just made my hypochondria worse, which we cover in the show. It was a mess, but it was also a lot of fun. But it kind of nearly killed me, and then I had to turn it into something, and so I just stopped what I was doing and made it happen. I premiered my show at the Whitefire Theater in Solofest February. It took me 2 months to write the show, and then I did it again for Fringe. But like a year ago, I wouldn't even be imagining that I was sitting right here talking about doing a show at Fringe. So it was just something that had to come out, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks, guys.
So we're gonna do a little bit of a panel discussion. I'll ask some questions for a little while, but then we're gonna open it up to Q&A towards the end, probably the last 45, 30 minutes of the session. So if you have questions, just write them down, and that way we can cover those at the end. We are doing more of these creative workshops you probably read about. We're doing solo writers for ensemble shows later today if you wanna hang out with us all day. And then tomorrow we've got a collaborative writing session from 5 to 7 in the same space. And these are meant to be sort of a companion series to what we do in the spring. We do a series of town halls and workshops in the spring that are all about how to put up your show. And those are all free to you guys. We do them at different Hollywood venues, Hollywood Fringe venues, and they are a lot of fun as well. We just started doing these last year, and these are a lot of fun because it's a little bit more about like, how do you write these shows, like, and with Fringe in mind. So let's start talking about it. How do you guys find inspiration for your work? Like, what inspires you? How do you get that first initial spark of an idea? Where does it come from?
Sorry. A really traumatic experience. I'll try to keep this brief, but I was with a guy, like I said, I have herpes, I've never broken out, but after having sex with me for like 2 seconds with a condom on, he went and disappeared into my bathroom, and he came out minty fresh. He smelled like Listerine because he washed himself down there with Listerine. And I was like, this is awful. And then I split myself into 2 people, and I was like, this is really sad. I feel like a dirty piece of crap. And the other side of me was like, wow, this is going to be really great in a show. Should I put it in a sitcom? Is it going to be a romantic comedy? And then I parodied that moment with that Bush song from the 90s, Glycerine. So it's like, don't let the herp inside, Listerine. And it was pretty awesome. But it came from just a world of pain. It was funny.
What about you, Jennie?
I think the moral is if you're a writer or anybody, just you have to always have a pen and a piece of paper with you, because you never know when that thing is going to hit you. And I'm going to go back to when I wrote a previous one-woman show, about 15 years ago when I started writing it, and I was sitting and watching someone else's one-person show. If anyone knows Tony Abetamarco, I was watching Tony Abetamarco's one-man show, and he's an amazing performer. And while I was watching Tony, I got struck with an idea for a show. I came up with a title. Something hit me, and the title was "You Mother," and that's what I came up with. I was sitting there, and I don't know why, but Tony inspired me, and I thought of "You Mother," and I was a young mother at the time. Now I'm an old mother, but I was a young mother, and I came up with this thought of different mothers, all different kinds of mothers. Me as a mother, my mother, all different mothers, and I had the playbill in my hand, and I pulled out my purse, and while I'm watching Tony, I was scribbling in the program, all over the program. I got home, and I was just like scrawl all over the program, but I at least had something to write it on, so that I didn't forget that idea. And that was the inspiration for my first show, and then what came out of that was this show called You Mother, and my mother was one of the characters in that show. And then that show did really well, and people loved it, and people asked me to do that show after it closed, which it ran for about 2 years. But people said, do you mother, do you mother, do you mother? I'm like, I can't. I'm different. I'm older now. My kids are older. My mother passed away, and things were different. And I would then talk to people about my mom and what happened between the time when she passed away, and then there would be a spark in their faces of enjoying these stories about my mom and her passing and what happened toward the end of her life. And I think what you find is when you're sharing a story with someone and they react to it, and you see that spark of recognition in their face, pay attention to that. That's something that they're interested in. That is probably what you should be writing about. Because when I would see that spark of, they want to talk about death. And I was like, wow, people are really enjoying these morbid stories about my mom and her death, and they think this is funny, and this is sort of like weird, but I'm talking about my mom's death, and people are like enjoying this. I think this is the show. And that became the show. So,
What was the title?
The title of the show, I was going to originally call it, it's funny, I was going to originally call the show the Jell-O Mold Memorial Tour. My mom kept the instructions for what to do when she passed under the Jell-O mold. And I was going to call it the Jell-O Mold Memorial Tour, and a friend of mine said, it's called Under the Jell-O Mold. And I went, oh yeah, oh. So that's why it's called Under the Jell-O mold. So anyway.
What about you guys? How do you get your inspiration?
For me, I'm a firm believer in you can write a show about anything you want as long as other people can relate to it. A lot of my shows are mostly like autobiographical and things that have happened. But I mean, I've been seeing solo shows for so long. I literally have seen a solo show about anything and everything. Necrophilia, I've seen it. It's just no, seriously. And I'm definitely from the school of if you write a show about it, there's somebody who's experienced it or somebody who's interested in it. As long as it's relatable, and that's just the key. That's the key. So, my shows have definitely evolved over the years. My first shows were about coming out, and now, then it moved into dealing with unruly in-laws and getting rid of those in-laws, and, so yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm just from the adage, write about what you know. Write about what you know, and that's what's gonna propel you, I think.
What about you, Rasika?
So you can also not have a damn idea what you want to write about, which might be your spot, and that's where it comes from. Because my whole deal of trying to finish things means there's a bunch of unfinished projects, and trying to do a frickin' one-woman show, that bucket list item that some of us people have. I mean, the sheer difficulty of it is what I started to find humor in, hated. It almost killed me. It's like, I'm ready to move back, fuck all the, it's always when you get to your fuck it, I'm done.
Yeah.
You kind of have to hit that wall for the real, I don't know if it's inspiration, but like, something has happened. Something has happened.
Oh, something happened.
Something. You got traumatized. Some wonderful show was inspired by her rape, and she can do 1,000 characters about everything that goes into
awesome.
it. I mean, it can be that bad, something that happened to you. It can be awesome. The transgender operation procedure. I mean, I've seen amazing shows come out of that struggle. And then mine, it has to do with mental issues, like, why are my parents so toxic? And it's like a lot of blame. And then, well, why don't I just make it funny and try to get some healing out of this? And that's what comedy is for me. It's always pain plus time equals comedy. get a little time in there so you can look back and laugh. But then if you can relive it on stage, because it's still wrong. It's wrong.
Yeah.
By the way, I wanted to say, it still looks like Cherise's Coke is all over the floor.
Yeah.
Like it never got cleaned up.
She was very good about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a big cocaine explosion
It
in my show.
almost
It's a dance number.
reminded me of that.
It's very, very messy, but
So we had that and the flood cannon in another show. Exciting time in this venue.
And I think that the last step is just like, take it seriously. So then I got a director. Deanna Barone is, she develops your content. Like, we finally look at it, get an editor, you know, get a pro. Like, and say, how can you help me? Because I feel like at some point, you can only take you so far, right? And maybe that's where you'll find another breakthrough piece to put in your show, is how did it finally get there? I just think that those autobiographies are the most fun, the most rich, and when you get that under your belt, then you can move on to doing other people's autobiography shows. Have you guys seen these, the Life of a Slave Girl? And I mean, how people are writing now, what you can do with your creativity, literally an idea can come from anywhere.
Yeah, I think that, I'm just gonna add.
Yeah, of course.
You're absolutely right. You have to get an outside eye.
Yes.
You must have a director. You gotta bring it to, if you've got a group to work with, if you've got a writer's group. I belong to a great community called We Make Movies. It meets on Wednesday nights. It's open to anybody. You can show up. And where my piece, where Under the Jello Mold started, was that I thought, I don't know if this is a show. These stories about my mom and her dad. I don't know if this is a show. David Letterman used to have a thing on his show called "Is This Anything?" So I kind of, with that in mind, thought, "Is this anything?" And I wrote a monologue about one of the pieces that I had bubbling around in my head. I brought it in as a monologue, as an acting piece, and I did it in front of the We Make Movies group, and they let me know if it was anything or not. And that's how it started, that's how the show started. Because I didn't know. I didn't know if it was going to be anything or not. So you have to be willing to throw your stuff out there and take the feedback that you get, accept it. It's meant to be constructive and helpful, and be willing to accept it.
So this is a good segue, actually, because the next question I want to ask you guys is, like, how do you start? You get the inspiration, right? And everybody has a lot of, like, all creative people have a lot of ideas running around in their head. How do you start? How do you start the writing process? What does that look like at the beginning for you guys, before you bring in the other people?
Well, for me, I belong to a storytelling group, and there are a lot of places around town where you could do open mics. So a lot of times, I'll just start out, I belong to this one storytelling group called Story Salon, and you can tell a story about anything. The only rule is that you have to bring a different story every week. And so sometimes, a lot of my shows have just started off with a random story, and you get like 5 to 7 minutes, so after the 5 to 7 minutes, I still had more story. And so a lot of times, it's developed just from having a continuous story and realizing, oh, I can turn this into an hour of stuff. So that's how I start out.
So you sit down and write a short story
Yeah,
and kind of expand it from there.
So when you can get it on its feet, right?
And it's in front of a group, and at Story Salon we meet every Wednesday, so there's an audience, and it's a real audience. So you immediately know if the material works or not, immediately.
And then, before you even get to if you're worried about how do I just start writing? This is what Deanna has taught me. To get a good, let's say a storytelling show, like most of our stories have stories within stories, right? So it's not a direct line to your end. It starts somewhere. There's all the different ways to do a beginning, middle, end, whatever. It can have any structure in the world. But if it's the stories that hang together, then you want to have a couple of 5 to 7 minutes. And what Deanna always starts me off with is, she coaches too. So she will have you do a 12-minute timed writing. You can do this at home. Give yourself 12 minutes about said topic. And I would say, pick something that has a lot of charge to it still. Like you aren't over it. It's happening now. Breakups are good for that kind of stuff, right? Like, where's the pain? And then just seriously do a free write, the way you learned an artist's way. And then go back and look at it, which you would never do an artist's way. Now you have editor mode, and just start looking. And then next day, new topic, completely unrelated. Do another 12 minutes. And now you're gonna start getting into the habit, you're just creating some chunky content. It may be useless in the end, but it will definitely get you seeing where's your emotion at these days, what is still on your mind, what do you think you should be writing about, but this is more fun instead, then maybe that's your show. Show starter, you know, maybe that's where you end because it's recent, so then you go back, what has led up to this moment. These are just some thought starters for writing.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You can go.
I was just saying, like, when we started, so after I did them, mine started with that monologue. Did the monologue, found out, okay, people responded to this. And then decided, okay, we're gonna build it into a show. Then I had to go write a show. So it started with just pouring out material over about 2 months. And I just wrote everything I could think of, literally everything I could think of, every story I had shared in the past years since my mom had passed, anything I didn't put in the first version of this show, I just poured it out. So suffice to say, it was way overwritten. It was too much material, and most of it didn't make it into the show. But, you know, write too much material, and then you're gonna start editing. So then that's your next step. But the first step would be,
or then
it's
you
like
get your hour
write.
20, so keep
Yeah,
that
you're
stuff.
gonna,
Just
right,
wait.
you're gonna get like way too much stuff. Right, well, that's an interesting
You just
idea.
have to learn to edit for that.
I thought that was my hour 20 version, because the show in the Fringe was an hour, and now if you come see it tonight, using the discount code Fringe, it's an hour 20. None of that extra material that I first wrote is in the hour 20
It's
version.
just that you.
It's not, because then we culled it, edited the stuff out that we didn't need, made it an hour, and then when we wanted to expand it to go to the Whitefire, we wanted it to be an hour 20 minutes. I said, great, we can put back some of that stuff that we edited out. And then we looked at the stuff that we had edited out, and we went, we never needed that stuff.
Yeah, that's usually what happens.
Yeah.
It's like it's just like the
It's
vomit
just
drop.
extra.
And then you go, after getting to the heart of it, you can go deeper from there, and there's
that's
so
what
much,
we did.
you
We
open
went,
this box.
we
and
went
it's like,
deeper, and
yeah,
it was new stuff. It was all different new stuff.
totally.
Yeah, so.
Mine was a little bit different, and it's specific, but it's also very general in a lot of ways. So I started with 2 pieces that I wrote in a cocaine haze, where I felt like it was my lowest point in life. Like Rasika said, there was like a deep desire to connect to another human, and I couldn't do that. I almost killed myself, not like literally, but figuratively, and I was slowly killing myself because I was lost in a drug addiction. But I wrote these 2 pieces that were definitely in the show. One of them is the opening piece, where I'm like kind of coming out to somebody, telling them I have herpes, but it's a train wreck, and like the guy's all over me, and that he wants to like leave the room as soon as I say the word herpes, but it's like, oh, but I have this thing, and it's kind of like, you know, I'm not getting married today in company. That's like kind of like the delivery on that. And so I wrote like this train wreck of a speech, and then the other thing I envisioned was being on a date with someone, and like I tell them I have herpes, and then I turn into like a Fantasia, like cartoon herpes, and it's like herpes. And this is like the personification of the disease in this guy's head. And so I wrote these 2 pieces, and I put it away because they scared the crap out of me. And I think when something scares you, you're on the road, or you're in deep water. There's like humor there, but there's also a lot of pain that people can connect to, whether you have a disease or not. It's just the desire to be loved and to feel a human connection. And so I think that's important, and it's inherent in all of our stories, all the examples that we've given. So a few years later, after I got clean and everything, I met this really cool guy, and he's my boyfriend. but he was doing solo theater with the patron saint of solo theater, Jessica Lynn Johnson, who is my director, and she teaches a free class on Saturdays. Here's the plug at the Whitefire Theater. I've mentioned several times. And she's great. She helped me hone a lot of the stuff in, but I had a lot of material from my experiences. Like Jennie had, all these stories about her mother. So my goal was to put everyone in the theater in every possible scenario you could be involving a disease or having to come out to someone and tell someone and accept it or reject it. So I just tried to tell all those stories eventually. And the first time I did the show, my show was 90 minutes. I did it at Solo Fest, and I'm thankful for everyone who stayed, because there were like about 80, 90 people there. And then for Fringe, I cut it down. I cut it down to 60, but with laughs and audience participation, it came out to 70. So that's one of the things too, once you start writing, is trying to be realistic about what your story is and what the format is, what the medium is. Like, it might not be an hour long. I wanted my show to be an hour long, like a 60-minute show so bad, but I was breaking it in ways that it didn't make sense to break it. Like, I could kill my babies. I've been writing for a long time. But just realize what your show is, what the length is, and be okay with it. If it's a 75-minute show, it's a 75-minute show. That's the way it is. Just make sure you're honest about it, because people will walk out if you say it's 60 minutes. And just realize too that you need time for people to laugh or things to happen. Something breaks down, you gotta go, fix it, whatever. You have a prop that's not working. Factor those things in. But as your process goes, try to not judge yourself. Get it all out there. Get the vomit drafts, and then start chiseling down to the meat and to the heart of everything. And if something scares you, go for it, because that's where the good stuff is.
So I know you guys all kind of draw a lot from personal experience, and I think a lot of people do. But when you're writing other people into your shows, how do you define between what's your personal experience and what you're writing from you, and how you're getting into the heads of other characters in your show? How do you do that?
This might be a humor writing thing, but I always have my other characters know themselves. So I'm the only person who's really having a crisis. And my dad's qualities will be poking, like I've already mentioned, he's aggressive. So by the time we get to his impression, it's aggressive. I've set it up. And so there's a payoff in my other characters. Of course, my other characters were played by my audience members. So that was my device, if you will, to bring new people to life. There's a casting session in the middle of my, I love your reactions to everything I say. And I have those shoes. Well, then you're going to be a scholarship. What was I saying?
Casting session.
So I leave those seats empty. And then in the middle of or near the beginning, I have people come and play my mom, my dad, my therapist, whatever, people from my life. And so the joke was, if they couldn't do my parents, then I get to direct them and make fun of them. If they could, everyone's like, wow, how did Rasika know how to cast this person? So if there's a difficulty with figuring out something, find the fun in that.
Yeah.
If you are so traumatized by your dad that you can't even, then find a way to have a picture of Richard Grieco, or I don't know, represent him, right? There's an opportunity in the problem. That's an old celebrity.
But I think too, it's, when you're writing the show, it's your perception of how the person was acting, regardless of what it really was. It's your perception and what you're perceiving. So I'd say stick to that. How are you perceiving how this person is treating you? That's what you go with.
Yeah.
Because it's all about, at the end of the day, it's all about, being organic, and it's going to be your organic feeling about this person that's going to come through in the writing.
For
So that's
sure.
what I think.
And if it's a character that's kind of bland, like I had 3 doctors in my show, and the first doctor had no personality, so I took my internal conflict at that moment to exploit the comedy in the show and to also give my doctor a personality. So the doctor was just like judging me the whole time, and then I would come out to the audience, and if I had family members in the audience, I would pick on them and have them judge me, because they'd be like, oh, that is your daughter right there, what is she doing? And my doctor was Indian, by the way, so I'm not just
That was my
a
dad.
stereotypical, like an asshole, but that really happened. But yeah, so if somebody kind of doesn't have a personality, or you don't have a personality for them and everyone else is a character, you can always infuse your own internal conflict, like whatever you're going through at that moment, or what your character is supposed to be going through, and then you use it as a mirror or the other side of the mirror to show what, to exploit that pain and then find the humor there.
How do you do that? Sorry.
Okay, so like, here I am, and I'm sitting in a waiting room, and I don't know if I have anything, but it looks like I don't, but in my mind, I've already convinced myself that I do. And so here's this doctor, and all of a sudden, she's just a regular doctor, putting her gloves on, checking me out, nothing's happening. But in my mind, she's like, got the gloves on, and she's like, prying me open, and she's judging me, and she's freaking out. And so I'm projecting all my insecurities and all my internal conflict on that other character, but showing me like my shame at the same time. And then I'm like, what's happening? And then,
So it's not based in her.
But you have an opinion. You have an opinion about everybody, so it's basically
your opinion. Yes, totally. That's for sure.
Sometimes that's the revelation you're trying to show. That I came to the conclusion that is not how my dad really was. And this really is an awakening you can have in your life.
Because by the end,
Right?
you're
So,
like, wait.
so if you can show what you went through to, they went from a monster in your mind
Oh, that's good.
to
Totally.
whoever,
Totally.
which maybe we all need to do that with everyone in our lives. Then you have now shown, you've taken the audience on an awakening journey of, that's one type of journey.
Right.
I just got that.
That was beautiful.
I need to call my dad. I need to call him now.
What about you, Jennie? Like,
Well, the characters in my show, like the other characters, are all, it's almost like you held up a mirror to my mom, and these other characters are sort of reflecting back their version of what they see. So it's like my character, me, sees this version of my mom, but the other characters see this other version of her. So it's like you get a chance to, as the audience, to see what they see in her that I can't see.
how do you do that?
So they're
Like, how do you figure out what that is?
well, that's what
If it's something you can't
those
see.
characters that's what those characters get to show the audience. They get to demonstrate to the audience what it is that they see in her, and they get to reflect that back. So it's through their body language and the way they respond to her, and so that's a lot about what is developed in those characters. It's literally their body language and their responses, the things they say to her, the way it's everything in their character and their responses to her. They convey a lot. They don't get a lot of words in typically, but that's their place in the show. That's their role in the show, is conveying to the audience the things that Jennie can't see. So.
That's very cool. So we've talked about kind of how you get started. How do you see it through to the end? I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this. But
Fidget spinner.
like how long did it take you guys to finish your different things? Because it takes people different.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I did the story salon I told you about. I also did Jessica Lynn Johnson's workshop as well. Which, the good thing about that, both of those places is you can actually get your stuff up in front of people, and they're in safe spaces.
What are those things called?
Story Salon, and then Jessica Lynn Johnson.
Story Solo.
Story Solo.
Yeah.
And it's a free workshop once a
Story
week.
solo.
And last year, she directed, what, 17?
She directed mine last year.
Yeah, she
Give us
directed
that number.
She directed 17
Yeah.
shows in this last Fringe. And the previous year, My Big Fat Blonde musical won the top of the Fringe.
Wow.
Which is, it was.
So she knows so.
Yeah. But I think it's just literally just a question. Even I talk to a lot of people who are like daunted with the whole writing process, and sometimes, and this work, and it's gonna sound hokey, but it works. Even if you just sit down for 10 minutes a day and just write 10 minutes a day, at the end of the week, you're gonna have something. So it's just, don't overwhelm yourself. Even if it's just you have a little chunks of time today, use those little chunks, and it all adds up in the end.
I started writing mine a little over a year ago. I mean, it was like September. So it wasn't really like that long. But I will say on the way driving here, I was like, I think I could change my slides. I mean, I'm still like changing
Rewriting
things.
it
I'm
in
still
your head.
rewriting it. I'm
Totally.
still tweaking things.
For while you're doing it?
I'm still thinking of new, so I'm not done.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you?
I have slides. It's weird. At the Fringe, some people like didn't notice them, and some people were like, I was distracted by the slides.
Oh,
So how did you drive through to the end though? Like how did you find like an ending? Like how did you know when you were ready to start with the next part of the process, bringing in other people and all that kind of stuff? Like how did you know when you had gotten that far? Like you've got your vomit drafts.
Yeah.
You've done like a final draft. How do you know like when it's the appropriate moment to start working on the next thing, even though you constantly rewrite forever?
Sometimes you sign up for the
I'm not
festival
done.
before it's even
Wait,
done.
That's what I did.
Sometimes before it's even done, you sign up and you have the deadline and the festival started.
Not done, but like done enough so that you can start your process of putting up
Putting
the
it
show. You know, like
we knew it was a show right away before it was written.
yeah.
So don't be scared. If you think you have an
Yeah.
idea for a show,
Sign
sign
up.
up for the Fringe. I have an idea for a show. I'm gonna do it, and that will propel you to do it.
Yeah.
Because once you sign up, you're committed, you're gonna do it. We didn't have a show.
Yeah.
We
So
signed
you-
up for the Fringe and we didn't have a show.
And I've seen it go
It was
both
like, oh
ways.
shit, I gotta write a show. Yeah, that was.
I
that
still
made-
had to hand my script to my lighting person the opening night. It was finally done.
Yeah, we did
It
not
can
have a
be
show.
that bad. Don't be that
Story.
We did not have a show.
I've seen people writing the day up.
Like that. I was editing.
Wait.
I was
We have to
editing.
slow
Take it
it down.
down.
We're getting crazy. We're getting crazy here.
Let me step in as mom.
Sometimes it's not done, and that's the show.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay because you'll figure it out. Yeah, I signed up for Soulfest and it was 2 months, like this, after the election. So I had 2 months to write it, and then I had a lot of stuff, and I had the songs too. So I did musical parodies in each of my big scenes. So it was like 9 musical numbers. They were short though, kind of. And then, what the hell were we talking about? ADD. Oh yeah, how we got to the end. And then, so then you kind of just get it together, and then it's like, oh, I have to put it up. Then you put it up. Like, you don't really have any time, but as long as you have, something to talk about, you're gonna get it done. I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So having
it's
a
okay.
deadline
They keep
is
you on
helpful.
really
Yeah,
good
having a deadline is helpful,
Yes.
and know that you're probably gonna constantly be changing it. Like, I would change it on stage, or sometimes my intent would change. Like, oh, this is a monologue and it's supposed to be happy, but I'm angry, and I'm gonna deliver it angry, and it actually gets like a different response, and it's a better response, and then it brings out another side of the character for you. So it is constantly changing. But you can push through to the end. We've all done it. Yeah.
So, you feel like you're at a place where maybe you're not done, but you're at a place where you feel like you can bring others into the process. Like, how do you decide who those people are going to be, and like how when do you ask for it, and what are you asking for from people, and then who do you involve in the editing process?
Well, I mean, for me, I've learned, I have friends and fellow artists, who I've met over the years, who I admire their work. I asked, I ask them to take a look at the script and just to get a third eye, because sometimes I know for me, I need someone who is not involved, who has no stake with it, and who has just a fresh eye to look at it. Just because I know in my experience, sometimes I can get so married to the material that I don't want to cut anything. And so I get someone whose opinion I trust, because that's important part too. It's got to be someone who you trust their work to just really look at it and, you know, give their take on it.
Yeah, you have to make sure it's somebody who, like, my husband's a director, but I don't like working with him because he always likes to make me look very pretty. And I'm like, I don't need someone who is concerned with making me look pretty. I need someone who's willing to make me look ugly. And I need someone who's going to be honest with me and who's going to say, cut that, cut. Because otherwise I won't, and I don't need to look pretty. I need to be good. So you need that person, and you need someone who's going to be straight with you, and somebody who's going to say to you, that doesn't work. You need to cut that, and you're going to go, and you're going to be willing. You're going to disagree with them, and you'll think about it for a day or two, and you'll be like, you're right. Okay, you're right. Because that's me and my director. You know, my director is Tom Cavanaugh, and believe me, we had these arguments all the time. He'll be like, you need to cut that. That has to go. He's from New Jersey. And I'll be like, no. And then, like, the next day I'll call him, and I'll be like, okay, you're right. So.
I think it's about knowing what, like, all the different cards you have to play in your show. So, is it a musical? Can you sing? If you can sing and hold a tune on your own, maybe you don't need to, you know, spend money on a vocal coach. But maybe you have a lot of props, so you need to pay somebody to help you make your props, so that you invest your money there. But you want to look at all the different things that your show has to offer, see yourself in a realistic way, and see what you're capable of doing. Also know that putting up your own one-person show and producing it all that by yourself is a lot. It takes a lot out of you. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of your soul. It's awesome. And you try to get the best team together that you possibly can with the resources that you have. So if I'm a kick-ass painter and I have time, maybe I'll paint all my, you know, my backdrops by myself. But it's about recruiting this team who's going to be honest with you and help make you, or help you produce the best product possible, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I had been taking a storytelling workshop with Deanna Barone for about 3 years, and I had just, you know, said, I'm gonna work with this woman one day. And by that summer, we were writing my show. We were working on it actively, trying to, like, make these new stories into something. So for me, it was in finding this longtime mentor who I've always trusted. I've always loved her work. There's something about her that I aspired to be like. And it was a time where I was a female who really was done with a lot of male leadership, and I was, like, ready to accept what females had to offer. And so that became important, to be a female led by another female who succeeded in this field. So I just feel like just by following that intuition really led me to this. And last year she did her one-woman show, and I watched all the Fringe shows, like, and so it was the right engine to start applying. Like she said, you know, your show should have been here this year. And that's it. That's all someone has to say to you, to raise your own standard, to be like, I shouldn't wait another year. I should be at that show festival next year. Why not? A little scary,
Yeah.
but a little, what the fuck else am I gonna do? Complain another year? You know, like, this is a self-producing, this is the place you do that, fuck it, I'm done with the industry, I gotta do my own stuff. This is one way to do that. It's stage version of that. Then there's your YouTube channel stuff. But, you know, if this is really calling you, I think you're gonna find the people. It's these names you keep hearing over and over, right? Like, these are people who are veterans. So just pay attention to that. Ask a friend, hey, can you connect me to so-and-so? I hear they're doing a writing workshop. And then, you know, some of these people will work with you. They're hireable. They're, you know, they're pros. So they're worth it. You're worth it, you know?
This is great. So, like, you have different amounts of collaborators. As particularly solo shows, I find, like, a lot of people will do everything themselves, right? They write it, they direct it, they perform in it, and it could be a lot for one person to do. So who are your essential collaborators? Who are the people that you must have involved with you to help your show be successful? And then how did you find those people when you were first starting out? Because it's harder when you're just getting into the scene for the first time, right?
I think it's great you have to have a director. I think you really need an outside eye to help cull material out, to help you know what should be in the show, what should be out. If you're performing your own material, I think it's great to have someone guide you through the performance of it. So I think it's really critical to have a director. I think it's good to have a good graphic artist to design your promotional materials. I mean, your stuff was awesome, your stuff was awesome. I mean, everyone up here had good, you're gonna need postcards and things to pass out, and that's really important. I mean, it sounds, I know we're talking about a creative process, but you need promotional stuff. And it's gotta be eye-catching, because that's how you get audiences, that's how you get butts in the seats, and that's really important. I can't stress how important that's going to be. You don't want to perform to two people, your mom and your dad is nice, but you want more than that to show up.
So somebody to help with marketing.
Someone to help with marketing, yes. And you don't want to have to do everything yourself. It's a lot to perform your show. You don't want to be the only person on your team. So, if you can get somebody to help with your social media marketing, if you can have anybody, a friend or a professional who can help with that, that would be awesome as well. And how do you find those people? So if you belong to a We Make Movies or a Story Salon or a Soaring Solo group, or if you can connect yourself, there are a lot of these groups out there. If you don't belong to one, ask any of us, because we do, and happy to have you come on board. I mean, these groups are open to people.
And free.
And free, yeah. So hook up with these kind of groups, because there are people out there who are happy to help you, and they're available, and they want to connect to somebody because they're looking for involvement too.
Yeah.
So, find your resources, because they're there.
Yeah, within these groups, there's usually a lot of overlap. Like, there'll be somebody who does graphic design, or someone who can build your website, or someone who can, he's a cinematographer, he can film all the short films that you need for your show. I met my team mostly, I met some of them through Jessica. So there's Jessica, then my boyfriend helped me with acting and comedy, and more the technical side I met in film school. I went to AFI, so I really kick-ass production designer, made my herpes costume. That's me as a herpy. That thing weighs like 12 pounds. I did not wear it in the show, but everybody asked me to. And she helped me design a lot of my props. And then I had some DP friends, or director of photography friends, like to do my photos and my videos and things. And the writing, I'm not gonna lie to kick it. I'm a control freak about my writing. I took a lot of the writing, I did all the writing myself. But as far as like shaping the show into what it is, that was definitely a collaborative process. And I was open to, having Jessica there as my director to help shape it. But Jessica Lynn Johnson. Yeah, she's awesome. And acting wise, I took she's my director obviously, and my boyfriend helped me out with like more of the comedic moments, because he's an actor, he's pretty kick-ass. So just finding the team around you, and then trying to get the best. But so for me, it was my director, my boyfriend, my brother, who's an actor, and he did all my quick changes in the back, which was a big deal for him, because he's the star of the family. And me and a couple friends from school. But like all these communities, whether it's Soaring Solo or someone else, they have close-knit groups that kind of overlap artistically, so you can find whatever you need. I hope that made sense.
I'm interested to hear what you think about this, because you often have a pretty slimmed down sort of group.
Yeah, because for me, I tour a lot with my shows. So like I'll do the Hollywood Fringe, but then I'm going on to a different city, and so a lot of times, I don't have a budget to have a team go with me to Minnesota, Canada, different. So a lot of times, it's me, but I do have someone who directs it, or a third eye, but when it comes to touring, it's, you know, it's to your advantage to keep your team as small as possible, because when you go to other cities, you got, you know, you can't, maybe I can't afford to bring a team with me. So what I make sure that I do though while I'm here locally is have everything that I need and have the people that I need. So once I'm getting ready to go on the road, it's ready to go, you know, because when you go to different festivals, it's great, but you don't know what you're gonna get until you get there. You may be doing your show in a theater, you may be doing your show in a storefront. You may be doing your show in like a renovated supply closet, which has happened before. So, you know, I think it's important locally, you know, locally while you're here, get as many people as you can to help you so that when you do go on the road, it's already up and running and as efficient as possible.
That reminds me of something. My show is like it was very tech heavy. I had like close to 200 cues, like no joke. Very, very tech heavy, very reliant on the tech. After Fringe, I did 7 shows in the space because I got encored. I did another show at a smaller theater, smaller space, smaller everything, low tech, and I was calling the tech while I was doing my show. It was a fucking mess, it was a nightmare. So I would, if you are leaning on the side of being a tech heavy show, have a bare bones storytelling version where you could take it anywhere. Simple, like a chair or 2 cubes and that's it. Because I had sets, like little sets all over here, which was rad in a big space like this, but you're not always gonna get that, so you have to keep the show adaptable, have a very simple version and, you know, have your balls to the walls version.
I do kind of want to segue now into like how Fringe fits into all of this before we start opening up to Q&A. So like what are the additional challenges that you wouldn't have to think about otherwise with Fringe? Like how does that alter the development process for you guys?
Well, I mean, for me, you know, every Fringe is different, but in my experience, some of the Fringes, like this Fringe, I think there's different slots where you can either have a 60-minute or a 70-minute or a 90-minute, and it basically depends on your venue. At other Fringes, it's literally, you have 60 minutes, that's it. And when they say 60 minutes, if you go 61 minutes, they will cut your show off. So I think one of the challenges is to make sure that the show is adaptable enough that if I only have 50 minutes, if I only have 50 minutes to do my show, I gotta make it fit and make it work and still not hurt the quality of the show at the same time. And so, yeah, the challenge is that every Fringe is a different entity and every Fringe has its own set of rules. So it's just being adaptable.
Yeah, and that pretty much similar answer, just making sure that your show is the right length. It is really important to be honest with your audiences about the length, because people want to go from show to show and they're going to build their nightly schedule, like, okay, I'm going to get out of the theater at 9, I'm going to run across the street to see this other show. They really want to know what time your show is going to end so they can plan their schedule. And if you aren't honest with them, they're going to be pissed. And they will leave.
They will leave.
And they will leave. And that's not a
Yeah,
fun
it's not
experience for them or for you if it's your show, and so don't do it.
And the
So-
word spreads pretty fast.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
We'll go to
and then
that
they
one.
won't come. And then they won't come. So if you think my show is going to be 60 minutes, build it so it's 55.
Totally.
Yeah.
Or build it so, if you think your show is really funny, build it so it's 50. Because then when people start laughing, it'll stretch and it'll be longer.
For sure.
So make sure you account for laughs or stunts or whatever other thing you got going on in your show, so that your audience can really enjoy themselves and leave.
Yeah, we changed my runtime, I think, after the first 2 times, Jen, or after the
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
I mean, and
It was-
sorry. I'm just the voice from above. You can change your time on the website, your venue can do it for you, but it will be printed in the printed guide. So luckily, everyone's pretty digital and
Yeah.
they're usually going from the website, but it's the earliest you can your run time, April 1st is the deadline for the printed guide, so you do have to put your time in there. So I think you went, what, 60?
It was 60 in the guide, but then we changed it to 70, and now I would even change it to 75, just so I have time to have fun with them.
Yeah.
Like, you know, but luckily no one left on the show.
No,
But
but
it happens. I've seen it happen. I've never done it, but like, yeah, it will happen, especially if you're on Theater Row and like everybody wants to go like from theater to theater, hop, like boom, they're getting in and out. Like the next group's going in. Oh,
and
yeah.
the show after you will hate you if
Yes,
you go over.
Totally.
I remember you tried to cut. You did cut.
I did cut.
After
so.
the first one, and I said like, well, you're gonna have to cut.
It was like a cut.
But then I was glad that I was able to get the
Yeah.
option too, because it was just for the laughs. So it is definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and it's different every night from time to time. Oh, also, if you know your show really well, like imagine it like a bunch of chain links. You can take links out and you can feel it. You can feel the momentum of the show while you're doing it. It's different every time. So it's like, oh, I'm gonna have to skip here, but this still covers this moment, this emotional moment. It's still funny, it works, and then you can cut things out as you go along if you really know your show very well. They're just like interchangeable parts.
Ready?
Now, this might come from left field, but this is a different problem to have during Fringe. They talk a lot about your relationships with people, as in your Fringe-ships.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, some of us have come from this very myopic, I do everything alone, I'm a writer type of world. And you kind of have to learn to let go of that. I mean, if you're gonna playwright, the right way to play is to share. We ended up introducing each other's shows.
Oh,
That's
that was
important.
fun. That was a lot.
You know, because an MC can help say the important announcements for the theater and where people need to go, and then she's got an extra minute to get her game face on. And you did the same for me, and it was awesome. It's high energy. It's a good way to exchange traffic.
Cross-promote.
Cross-promote. We
Cross-promoted each
discovered
other, yeah.
little things that a solo performer, though you are great at having a big crew with you, I just had my director, the stage manager given to me, and a scholarship awarded mentor. I mean, this was my tiny crew. I'd be nowhere without any of them. But my director was pregnant. She couldn't even, you know, my mentor had to do everything by FaceTime. Like, it was not ideal. But, so I think it's challenging when you're a solo person and that you're just solo about everything in life. So you're really gonna have to, how do you get traffic into your, you know, either you come from your giant mailing list, that's great, or it's going to be other people at Fringe. So they'll teach you this throughout the workshop. The culture is you don't talk about your show, you ask someone else, so what's your show about? And us fucking narcissists have to reprogram and learn to be interested in the other person's show. And then I got to learn how to do what you did. I wanted to hear more about everybody's show. By the end, you can't go to everyone's show, and it's a bummer. But you've collected these stacks of awesome flyers, which is why you've got to have a good graphic designer. That is what tells people where to go tonight. And it's just like souvenirs. People put mine up. It was so nice to see. But building community is definitely part of this. So big casts really have it good, I think, because there's more people who can help invite. But if you're solo, it's kind of coming down to you. So start
Yes.
meeting a lot of people.
And you have to hustle. There is
Yeah.
no time. There's no time when you're setting up and you're doing your show, you're getting the hell out of here, and there's no time between performances. You are always hustling and pulling in the whole time. My boyfriend and I were both in Fringe shows, and our place was like a freaking mess with like herpes everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, it was just crazy. Our cat was like pissed off at us. Like, but the time goes by so quickly, and you're just constantly hustling, trying to fill the seats, trying to get people to come, passing out your things, remembering every detail. So it is important to have a crew, but a lot of people go at it, you know, alone. And you guys were awesome. I saw they were, you know, pretty much lone wolves, but your shows were awesome.
Well, yeah, do you guys have any, like, last pieces of advice before we go into Q&A? You think it's time for
My last piece of advice is, okay, I think in January, February, they'll start like the Fringe office hours. which is like a fun little happy hour where you get to meet people. Go to that is where you are going to meet people, because it's also a social thing too.
There'll be Wednesday nights starting in the spring,
Yes.
at local bars.
Hours.
It's just networking. It's just
People
for,
just go hang out and talk.
yep.
It's
Drink
just
specials.
at a bar.
Yeah,
Right?
teaches
Like
you how to
that word,
network,
I
yeah.
hate that word,
Yeah.
but it will teach you how to
What
network.
word do you hate? Network?
Networking, like.
We say it a lot.
Yeah, it's exactly what you're saying.
Also, have your flyers done as soon as possible. Oh my God, I was trying to get my flyer so freaking perfect that the back is a hot mess. Anyway, it's like a novel. It's awful. This is how not to do a flyer. I'm gonna pass this on to you guys. The front is dope though. Have these done. Like I plan to have mine done a month before office hours started, and we were into like the 3rd or 4th, and then I had mine done, and half of them had already gone by. So you want to get to these. I know they're a pain, especially if you work and you have to commute, but it is useful to pass them out and to talk to people and ask them about their shows first. Because you're right, everybody in there is going to want to talk
I
about
met one of the first people I met at office hours, and I did not know how to network, and I hated the word networking,
Yeah.
and I was like, what? Office hours? Why is it called that? I'm not going to an office. I don't know what that means. It means you go to a bar and you talk to people. But one of the first people I met was Richard Lucas, and his show was Bono and the Edge Waiting for Goddomino.
Oh, totally.
And I was like, what's your show about? And he's like, Bono wants to know what it's like to be a common man, and so he orders a pizza and they have to wait for it. And I was like, I've never heard anything so brilliant in my life. And so, as it so happens, my show at the Whitefire is at 8, and Richard called me up a few months ago, and he's like, what do you think if I ran my show like after yours at the Whitefire? And I'm like, I think that's brilliant. So his show is at 10. Sorry, it closed last week, so you can't see it anymore. It was so brilliant. But like that's the kind of friendships. He's the first person I met at office hours, and like that's the kind of friendships you make.
Mm-hmm.
And because his show and my show were running together, we got a special deal at the Whitefire. So I mean, like it's so worthwhile. It's so worthwhile to make those connections. And I see your face every night before I go on stage because you did a show there.
I did.
And her poster is like right there before I go on stage. So I mean, like you have to do it. It's great.
All right, so we're gonna start Q&A. So the rule is, when I call on you, stand up and say your name loudly for everybody to hear, and then ask your question.
Hello, hi. My name is Susie Porter, and I'm turning really super organized, which is not what I used to be, but I so related with what you said. I've been wanting to do a one-woman show for about, 100 years, and I have to do it or I'm just gonna die or explode or something. So, but with that said, even though I have amassed probably 17 one-person shows in my head, how do you know when you're saying, set the date even before your show is done. How do you know when it's like done enough to even do that? Because even though I've got tons of material and I've like improvised an hour, yikes, I would not do that. How do you know when you're done enough? Can I sit down for the answer?
Yes.
What's the deadline? What is the deadline?
For registration,
Yeah.
April 1st is the registration deadline for being included in the guide. But we do take registrations like through the festival. Sometimes people register for the festival like in the middle of it. So
You have a lot of time.
yeah.
Well, you know what I'm saying? Like the difference between freaking out, because Valhalla's dreams where you can't remember your lines and you suck and you just want to die because you suck. Or you've got a pretty good idea and you feel pretty confident, but everything overwhelms me because I've been dreaming about it for so long. I expect it to be like, the Lion King, like sound effects, light effects, costumes, music, and I'm overwhelmed. I have a couple other questions about that too. So do you just feel in your
Can
gut?
you just write down 17 one-person shows in my head? I feel like there's something there.
That might be your
Just need to write,
one-person
do me
show.
a favor, just write that
Okay,
down.
for you.
Because that's something.
I think it's like taking, just taking the idea and doing it from start to finish, and then just start doing it and start doing, if you have venues or places you can go to do it, just start getting it.
Yeah, getting it.
Because part of the process too is the more you do it, the more you do the material, the better it's going to get, because the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to be with it. So I think it hinges a lot on that.
I think, I mean, one thing is you need to make sure you have a story that, has an arc to it.
Right.
So do you have one story out of those 17 that, does this, that you can say, this is the story that I want to tell, is the one that goes from here to here, and then take that story and put it up somewhere. You know what I mean? Take it and bring it to a story salon and workshop that story.
Right, and I've been to Jessica's thing, and I've been studying with Terry Silverman, and I've been doing things while I've been a mom mostly, but the idea of a polished hour.
Well, one thing
because those
about
places only give you
Fringe.
5 minutes, and you got to fight through the other.
Well, the
quantities
beauty of Fringe is it doesn't have to be Lion King.
No,
It
right,
can be you.
exactly.
It can be you in black pants and a t-shirt and a cube. So that's one good thing.
Right.
In fact, it should be that. It shouldn't be Lion King. So it doesn't have to be expensive, and it doesn't have to have flashy lights. That's the beauty of it. It shouldn't be expensive. But, so you can sort of relieve yourself of that, like take that out of your mind and relieve yourself of that. And just know that all it has to be is you telling a story. So if you can do that, then say which of these stories is worth telling, and then work on creating the best version of that story.
Got it. Okay, let me ask you this. Money.
Let's do some questions from some other gentlemen in the hat in the back.
Hi, I'm Dexter Giffard. So you had mentioned that when you're at the festival and actually engaged in putting the show on, that you have to hustle. Like you have a short time to set up and do everything, and that it's one show to the next. So does that mean that you're throwing the show in one space, and as soon as you're done, somebody else is coming in and setting it right after?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So then in terms of the time, the actual run time of your show, how much should we be backing out for being able to set up quickly and actually hit those targets? So that if we're an hour, should my running be 50 minutes, should be 45 minutes, so that I'm not running into an issue there?
It depends on
It depends on the venue.
It depends on the venue, it depends on the type of show. So if it's like it's a drama and there's not a lot of audience participation, you can do a flat 50 and it'll be 50. You get 15 minutes to load in and 15 minutes to load out for a 60-minute show.
Okay.
You want to try to keep it 10 minutes less, just in case time. And if it's funny, if it's a comedy, maybe even like 15 minutes just to give laughs,
Or you might want to use
right?
5 minutes to hold your house.
Oh, yeah, 5 minutes to hold your house, especially if it's a weird time. But in my case, I bought an extra block of time because I had a mess, and so I bought extra time. So it gave me like 30 minutes to get out of here instead of 15. So you have 15 to get in and 15 to get out, and what you do in that 60 minutes for your show is up to you. Yeah.
It's a great thing to talk to your venue about specifically when you're starting to do a deal with a venue, because each venue will handle it a little bit differently too, about how much time they're going to give you and how much time they want you to build into things too.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. You in the front.
My name is Mary Birkin. Hi. My question is about venues. Is there a venue in the Fringe where you can go and you know there's going to be other solo shows and they understand that you have to load in and load out, and the venue operator understands it's going to be a one-person show, and that's how the timing is going to be, and you can publicize yourselves as a whole bunch of one-person, really wild, crazy, wonderful shows?
Here's my card.
I think she wants to give you a card.
I can answer that a little bit. Solo shows are great in the sense that no matter what venue they're in, a lot of times solo shows will connect online. There's this great Facebook group it's just called the LA Theater and Hollywood Fringe. I actually am the moderator of that. So let me look it up and give you the exact thing. But a lot of solo shows will connect online and cross promote together. So it's great. It depends on the venue. There isn't a set venue that's only solo shows.
I was going to say, Studio C, we had out of the 20 shows, we had about 19
We also
were solo. So, but every
we had 17 shows in here, and we had 5 of them were solo shows, and you guys all knew each other. And they would help each other do front of house and whatever. It also depends on your venue too. Like in this venue, we do a lot of marketing for our producers.
So-
And so it's just something to talk to your venue about as well.
We do a town hall that we ask venues to come. That's usually in January, right, Dave?
Yeah.
We do it in like mid-January probably, and we ask like a bunch of venues to come and kind of give some of the information about these kind of questions. And these kind of things are often started by participants or people that are really interested in there being a venue for solo shows. It starts usually with somebody asking a question like that. And then other people are like, hey, that's a really good idea, let's do that.
Yeah.
So I would say like, keep asking that question. See if there's other people who want to do their solo show at the same venue as you. And then maybe it'll turn into a solo show super
The
venue.
Facebook group, by the way, you guys, it's just called Holiday Fringe Festival and LAP. That was started a couple years ago by a Fringe participant, and it's grown to like
Yeah,
2,000 members, and it's great. It's active all year, so join it. I'll let you in because I have to approve everyone.
A lot of the just quickly, a lot of the multiplexes like Complex, Sacred Fools, they all have a solo venue house in them, like a 20, 30 seat. So
Right,
they're out
like a
there.
small, yeah, like if you're looking specifically for a smaller venue.
Yeah.
Isn't there one in Santa Monica where you can use the theater for free, but then you just give them the ticket sales? I wish I knew the name of it.
I'm not sure, all the venues do that a little bit differently, and
Okay.
you can, yeah, you can find that out specifically from your venue. I'm gonna get you right up there.
Myself?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. Hi, I'm Susanna Drissi, and I don't exactly have a solo show. I have a one-act play with two actors, perhaps one, if she could possibly do that, and a narrator. And so my question is, I was thinking of directing it. I've never directed before, however, I have quite a few ideas of how I would go about putting this on. And I've put on other events, unrelated, but successfully. And so I'm wondering, many of you said get a director, in particular you. How much do you think would take for someone with little experience to direct something as simple as two women on a stage?
Well, part of Fringe is getting people who have maybe done theater for 20 years and then getting that person who this is their first thing ever. That's the whole point of Fringe is whatever level you're at, it doesn't matter. It's just that you get out and do it. So if this is your first time directing, go for it. Go for it. There's no rule that says you can't. And that's the awesome part of Fringe is seeing someone the first year doing, like, having never directed or never acted before, and then, like, 2 years later, you see them coming back, and it gets them started. So, yeah, go for it.
The problem was, you want the best for the story that you've written. And so I don't necessarily think that I may be the best. There may be someone out there who has it.
But once again, it's the Fringe. That's part of the Fringe, though, is it's any, whatever level you're at, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just, and no matter what level you're at, people will come out and support you. So.
I think there's two schools of thought to that too. You do see a lot of people in the Fringe who are writer-directors. Sometimes you see writer-director star. I have my own opinions about that, but it's whatever's best for the show. My husband is a published playwright, and he is very, very adamant about never directing his own thing. And the reason for that is a lot of times when he has someone else step in and interpret his work, they bring something new that he never would. And a lot of times that collaboration is really the magic. Right. So it's up to you though. And I've seen other shows directed by the writer that are brilliant. So it's up to you.
Okay, next question. Let's in front right here.
Yeah, when you sign up for Fringe, how many shows do you get to be able to perform? Like you did like 6 or 7? Or
Like how many performances do you get to do?
Yeah.
That is something that you set up with your venue. You can do one, you could do 10. You could do, however many you want.
But you have to pay extra per time?
Yeah, usually it's booked on like an hourly basis.
5 is a good number, but you can do whatever you like. But we sell packages in 5 and then go from there.
Oh, do a preview, like for the preview week, because that's how you get buzz about your show.
Yeah, if you have we do usually recommend that you have like at least one show in the preview week too, yeah.
And the preview is a full show.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, right there.
I'm Laura Fody, and my question is about what you get out of doing this. Is it just to keep coming back to Fringe year after year, or do you have greater aspirations and people from HBO and Netflix, everybody come to Fringe? What is the purpose and the long-term vision?
I think it's whatever you want it to be. For me, I did like one of my Fringe shows. I actually turned into a one-act play that ran this year. I'm turning another one into a film. I've received other opportunities just through doing Fringes, but it's whatever you want it.
But you do get other opportunities? No.
If you like, and that's strictly up to you.
There's an encore series at the end of the Fringe. There's
Yes.
awards at the end of the Fringe.
There's awards, there's an encore series. I got invited to be in an encore series. I did actually, a different encore series that I didn't go on to do, but you can get invited, you never know who might come, but some offers might get presented to you. If you invite people, you have to, I mean, when we say hustle, you not only have to hustle in and out of the theater because you have 15 minutes, but if you hustle yourself, you never know who you might be able to attract to come to see your show.
I bet the gig at the Mock.
That's on you. I mean, it's definitely, you know, the ball is in your court, and it's up to you to decide what you want to do with it. But nothing will happen if you don't put a show up. So suffice to say, you know, register a show and get the ball rolling in the first place. But, you know, it's always up to you. And if you invite people, they will come.
We've had people get extended runs and stuff like that, you know. I don't think we've had anybody strike an HBO deal quite yet. Maybe something to shoot for in the
It's
future.
coming, yeah.
And right behind her. Yes.
Great. Hi, I'm Natasha. First of all, I just want to thank you guys so much for doing this. I'm really feeling good about everything now. It's like so real, and I really feel what the community is like. So thanks so much. My show's not done. I don't have a third act. I'm like, because I'm living my conclusion. And it's hell.
That is
And
awesome.
I just wanted to share that and just hear whatever that inspires from you guys to tell me.
Right about hell.
That's it. I was just sharing this story before we started today. So I was vomiting all this stuff on this paper of this for the 2 months, and there's a secret that's revealed in my show. And so I'm putting all this stuff down on paper, and I've known my director Tom for a very long time, since I was in college. And so one day he's about to walk out of my living room, and he turns around and he says to me, "I wish your show had a hook." And I went, "What?" He goes, "I wish there was like, I don't know, I wish your mom had like a secret or something." And he was walking out the door, and I went, come back in. I shut the door, and I went, "That's really weird, she did have a secret." And he went, "What?" And I said, "She had a secret." And he didn't know this is a secret that nobody knew except me and my husband. But since he's sort of like family, I said, I'm gonna tell you what it is. So I proceeded to tell him what it was, and he said, "Okay, how would you feel not telling anybody that until you tell them on stage in your show, and that includes anybody in your family, including your children?" And I thought about it, and so anyway, that's kind of how the story of my show came to be, because I had not put any of that on paper, and no one knew about it. So do that thing you need to do right now. Finish your life, and it will come. Don't finish your life. Finish that thing, and it will come.
You gotta go to her show tonight. 8 o'clock. It's the secret.
I'll find the secret.
I had a comment about that too. My show had an ending, but the real ending to my show was me doing my show. It was my biggest fear. I mean, maybe that sounds stupid and cliche, but like, it was my biggest fear. Like, I lied about it. Like, I did a short film in film school about herpes. It was called Herpes: A Love Story, not this. And people are like, do you have herpes? I was like, hell no, that's gross. Like, and even like when I premiered it, I blocked people from my friends list because I didn't want them to know. And then now I'm like, herpes on Hollywood Boulevard and Santa Monica on Western, it's all over, it's breaking out. So that's the real ending, is being able to go up and do that. So it's you're gonna keep rewriting it, as you know. So it's okay. Just
It's
live
never
your
done.
life. It's gonna happen. You're gonna figure it out.
All right. Right here.
Hi, my name is Natasha as well. Tell me your name again. I just hear herpes.
My name is Cherise.
Cherise?
Or
Okay.
Cherry. Whatever.
Okay. So you're talking about like being scared, which I also hear like even like writing, creating an end is kind of scary as well. I have the problem of even like just writing because I'm so scared to write about it. And like, you know, I'll go to the computer and I'll like write an outline and then like I just can't even touch it because I get so emotional.
Right.
And like I don't know how to get over that. I guess it's like writer's block, or I have no idea how
Can
to
you
get
talk it out into just talk
Yeah.
about your feelings
Yeah.
on an
Yeah.
iPhone recorder, and
That might
then you
be
will
easier.
be someone who will just be going by dictation to get your script.
Yeah.
Go back and listen to it a week later when it's not so charged, and you can listen to it as an editor.
Totally.
Right? That could be your writing doesn't mean physical writing. It means
Yeah,
just
it
get
just-
it.
Just getting it out.
Yes.
And so many people remind me.
Yeah.
Tape recorders.
Yeah, tape recordings.
Or that if you can say it to a trusted friend, you might be ending up saying it in a way that, like Jennie said, it's really alive when that
Right.
story is told. It's the way the other, because it's going to stop being about you, right? We don't just watch someone go through something
Right.
there. We need to watch you come out of it, right? So once the charge is gone, you'll be able to look at it with a theatrical eye.
Yeah.
But initially, if it helps you to get some of this out, you can set up that how it'll come out, whatever you need to do to make it a safe space.
And but
Oh,
you
the-
specifically
yeah.
talked about that, and I'm curious of how you.
Okay, so there's two things. One was more technical. The show was one thing, and I knew what I was going to do, tell these stories about, you know, me finding self-love through herpes. But then after speaking to a friend who works with, you know, underprivileged youth and, you know, trying to lower the incidence of STDs in these communities, I realized that the reason, or the people I was doing my show for, was not for me. It was for young girls and boys who have low self-esteem, who are still trying to figure out who they are, you know, with their sexual identity and stuff, and how to be safe and respectful of one another. That's what the show is really about, and that's what I wrote it for. Even when I was writing it, I didn't realize that. That's one thing. Number two, the fear. I mean, like when a subject matter scares you, that means that you're on a it's a nice place to be dramatically, because there's comedy there and there's drama there for sure, but it is scary for us to open that box because we have to face our own vulnerability. But in that vulnerability is what you're going to use to connect to other people. In terms of getting the writer's block out, I would try an exercise from the Artist Way, which is just waking up in the morning and freehand writing 3 pages, just 3 sides of paper, not 3 whole pages. You know, free writing your stream of consciousness and not judging it, because what you're doing is like your thoughts are a bubble. You're taking the froth and the bubbles out, and all the good stuff is underneath. So you need to get that out, and all your fear and self-doubt and stuff is going to be in that stream of consciousness writing, and soon you'll be able to write all the good things underneath. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right over here.
Hi, I'm Bill Berry. I did the Fringe first time last year, and I didn't have a title when I signed up. I just wrote a title, and first time director, Kelly, and we won an encore award, so that was awesome. My question, I had a 55-minute show, and then I changed it to an 80-minute show. I feel your pain. And we presented it at the Binge Free Festival in Santa Monica. Someone was asking about that just ended. Just ended. And, but I'm trying to figure out what's the next step. The solo fest at the Whitefire, okay, I'm signed up for that. Do you bring your 80-minute now to the Fringe again, even though you just already did it? And Canada and all those sorts of things. These are all sort of floating in front of my face. I guess they're all good answers, and depending on what I want to do, but I just wonder if there's any sort of direction or suggestions or watch out fors that you may have as far as the next step. Now that it's 80 minutes, do you go back? What do you do?
I definitely think, I mean, just from my perspective, we've seen people come back and have great success because people have heard about them too. So there's already word of mouth going on about your show when you come back. But obviously I'm biased, I'm part of the staff, so you shouldn't listen to me. But, what do you guys think? Like, what about next steps?
Oh, I was just gonna toss out, take less out to coffee. And he's the one to talk to. He's done like every single Fringe in North America and Canada. He knows how to take the show to the next place. And I think you're also already talking to Michael Blaha about the Edinburgh Festival. He's another good contact
And
about
I've
that
seen your
bigger
show.
picture.
Yes.
I've seen your show, and you can tour the show, and it would do well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, terrific. I'll talk. Do you like coffee?
I do.
Over here in the baseball office.
Hey, my name is Adrian, and my question is about like the money part. What did you find? Well, first, does it cost money to use music in your show that's already been made, like from like an actual artist? And if you think like, oh, you know what? Maybe I didn't have to spend money on that. Maybe I didn't need postcards or some this thing on publicity. Like maybe I should have held back on that and spend it more on something else because this isn't really that necessary. Did you encounter any of that kind of stuff?
I would say the most important thing to spend money on is your postcards, and always have a postcard. Posters, you could get away with not having them, but you have to have postcards. Have to. Period. Music with so you're talking about using not original music, but music just like
That's already been like by actual artists. Like if you use your money,
like you can. You have to pay something though, because you can get popped for that.
You can use like 10 seconds of a song.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if you get.
I have an answer for that.
Okay.
I mean, if you
That's up to you.
Since
we're being filmed.
I'm working.
She's got some info
I
on
got an
this.
answer for that, and I was just given the answer by someone who's extremely experienced. So I have a musical that uses it's a jukebox musical, and so I was told as long as it's not for profit, so you can't charge, as long as you don't use the entire song and you leave some verses out, you're okay.
Yeah, I used all the instrumental tracks of Fingers songs. And
Right.
it was fine because it was parody, so it's covered under parody law. And you can't use like 10 seconds of something. You're using the Beatles, or I mean, it depends if you're making a lot of profit for your show too.
Sure.
Which.
Right.
Okay, and Dave knows a bit about this as well.
The official stance is you must obtain the rights for all copyrighted work. And if you have questions about whether or not to do so, you should talk to a qualified lawyer.
Very official, thank you, Dave. Right here.
Hi, my name is Laura Grimaldi, and I have 2 questions. Just a quick one. Do we get to choose our venue?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. And then the second question is writing process. Did you ever, I mean, when we're writing about personal things, I mean, you can change the names of people, but did you worry about offending people that?
Yes.
I worried about it.
You worry about it?
I worried about it, and I did it anyway.
It should have.
Yes.
Yeah, I named the guy who gave me her piece, and I put his name in one of my songs. And when I premiered the show, I put his picture up. He works in Hollywood. He is established. Like, I don't care.
It's a public service announcement.
But I left out his last name.
Ladies,
It could be any guy named that, and then I took his picture down.
But he did
because
come
that's-
see it, I remember.
Actually, I thought he was in the audience, and I thought he did come see it, which, because I didn't have my glasses on, so I thought he was there. And it started to freak me out, so like halfway through it, I'm like, okay, I can't get in my head about this. But then, in a way, I experienced having him there in the audience, so I was like ready for it if it happened. But you don't want to name them like outright.
I wrote my last show about going on vacation with my ex-boyfriend and his family. I named them outright. And yes, my boyfriend did show up to my first performance here and sat in the front row like this. But I did not care, and I did it.
Well, and the law says if they wanted you to write nice about them, they should have treated you.
Exactly.
Well, my show is starting off with me in the therapy session with my third husband, and he's pissed off at me right now. So it's like, I'm like, well, I don't know what to do about it. I mean, we're,
You can always change the name.
Yeah, and with my ex-boyfriend, his name's Alex, he was a big part of my show, and I called him Axel. But because of my characterization of him, he wore a fedora and he kind of spoke like this, everybody knew who he was. I mean, people who were involved.
Oh, yeah, I
knew who he
renamed
was.
him to
But you can,
for Hugh Jackman,
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
husband.
Yeah, that's why I just changed the names.
Yeah, okay.
All right, more questions? Who's next? Right here?
Hi, I'm Tessa. I also want to talk about money and ask, when do you decide what your budget is? Do you think about that during the writing process? And then once you have your budget, did you use personal funds? Did you fundraise? Anything in that realm?
You will be specifically interested in one of our town halls that is all about money and marketing.
Wonderful.
And it is.
On our YouTube channel.
But, oh yeah, and you can check out recordings of the past ones on our YouTube channel, which
What's
is.
it called? The budget show?
It's called, it's usually Town Hall 2, Money and Marketing, but you can look at our
You look at
YouTube channel.
playlists on our
Yeah, the playlists will have like HFF17 Town Hall and Workshop
Do you
Series.
lose a lot of money, or do you break even, or?
That, I mean, I want us to talk about this, but this is a big topic. This is like, we devote like a whole town hall and a whole workshop
But
to
if you're
this.
terrified, just do it anyways, but like, magic happens, all that stuff.
There's such a
I
wide variety of ways that you can go. in this direction, I
Yeah,
think.
I don't think it's about money. It's about putting your show up and staying true to that and just owning that.
So if
It's
you're
not about
terrified
that.
that you can't afford it, don't just ignore that fear?
Well, I think like, this is advice that I learned like in film school. You write the show. You don't give yourself constraints like, oh my God, I have to spend on this. No, write it. You can always scale it down later.
You know
You can
what?
always make a simple version for later. Don't let money get in the way of your vision of what you're writing. Just write it. And then figure it out. You can do what's reasonable for you and, with what you've got. And let that be the thing.
I think it's like having a baby.
That didn't cost anything, once I got pregnant, everything just happened, I didn't have to
Well,
pay her to be born.
But you know what, you're not gonna stop, if you wanna have a baby, you're gonna have a baby. Is it gonna cost you money? Yeah, hell yeah, it's gonna cost you money. But you know what, if you want one, you're gonna have one. You wanna do a show? Write a damn show.
My workshop, I talk about that and actually have an interactive budget to kind of help you along too.
Who are you?
I'm Matthew Quinn. No, I'll give you a card, don't worry.
Yeah, our YouTube channel is youtube.com/Hollywood Fringe, just in case anybody is interested in
What
that.
was it, backslash what?
/Hollywood Fringe.
What was the
YouTube,
first part?
youtube.com/Hollywood Fringe. And then there's years of these kinds of workshops where we talk endlessly about money and the different options that you can do for marketing and how you can have a cheaper versus a more expensive show. And, but I think the main thesis is like, don't do it because of money. Like, do it for a different reason than that. And then we'll work with you on that. Yes, right there.
Hi. What are the technical rules about making it a one-man show? Can you have other people on stage? I know Rasika had people from the audience come out and be part of your show, but are you allowed to have a chorus that doesn't necessarily have lines and it's still a one-person show?
There are no rules.
All right.
It's whatever you want.
That's the fun of how you bill it, right? Remember how Haley did it, one-person show featuring 3 other people or something?
Yeah,
It's part of the title, so you can get creative, but that becomes a way to market it.
It's whatever you want.
Whatever you want to do with that one-man show.
Well, and you get to pick one of, I think, 8 categories on the website. I would encourage you to be accurate, because if you call your show comedy and it's about, suicide, then probably going to have an upset audience.
It could be a comedy, that's
Yeah.
It's very quick, my question. I just wanted to know, you all mentioned, or at least some of you, having a website, and I wondered if that website was solely dedicated to, the title.com, or you already have a website and then you include that as part of your latest event or whatever. Is it a good idea to have just the website for the show?
I didn't have a website when I was doing Fringe. The Fringe gives you a page dedicated just to your show. That's part of the umbrella of
The ticketing and all that
you
stuff.
get,
You know, once Fringe was over, then I got a website for my show, but I didn't, you have a website.
So it might be
Essentially,
like
you
a
have a
nice-
page that's part of the Fringe, and you can put pictures and video.
correspond with people and everything.
And you can do everything through the Fringe.
Yeah.
So
Link
it was
that to
to
your
me to have.
website.
To your website.
Yeah, you need
But, well, that's what I'm
video.
saying, like, if you have, I already have a website, like
So-
a professional website for whatever else, right? But I wondered, like, I know yours had the title of your show.
For show, but I didn't have that before during Fringe.
I did, but here's the thing. I bought the domain, I bought the email, I was on top of that.
Okay.
Then Fringe happens. If you want to do that website, that's great. You know, because mine's going to be another project involving the herpes love story.
Yeah.
But you got to get that done like 3 months before because there's no time. Like I wanted to set all that up, and people can do testimonials about their herpes love stories. It's still not done. Fringe is over. It's almost next year. You know, like you got to get on that if you want to do it.
Yeah, I was thinking like starting now.
Yeah, then start it beforehand. And if you don't have it, it's okay because we have resources on the site. And if you do, you can link it on. Boom, boom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have more questions?
Do you do short stories in the Fringe too, or is it all? I didn't know anything about Fringe.
I saw some that were a half hour,
Yeah.
and they
We've had 15-minute
other ones that are half hours, so people like, and you work with them, like somebody had a double-sided flyer, and they were both half-hour shows.
Yeah,
The
John Stamos and Raymond Wright.
Yeah, so they just all went all in together, and then one's a half hour, and the other's a half, or 25.
You can do anything.
Yeah.
So can you do like, say, a theatrical piece and a short story, or you just have to choose which one you do?
Whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, you could do whatever you like. It's really open.
So long as it's 30 minutes.
No, you can do a 4-hour show if you wanted to. You do a 10-minute show, you could do a 2-minute show. Whatever you want.
She used to dance with Eartha Kitt, isn't that so cool?
Oh,
That's really cool.
See, that's a show.
Oh,
That's a show.
Any other questions? Yes.
Here's my biggest problem. I'm very shy and I have a bad memory. So I'm not going to do anything without having stuff in front of me. I'm kind of like Spalding Gray, sort of like, my inspiration because I like having pages to turn. I've done a lot of like spoken word, essay reading stuff. But I'm just wondering, is that interesting enough? I could probably do that and have slides, but I mean, is that?
I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen certain people do that. Yeah.
I think she's so funny already.
Yeah. Thank you. And also, I mean, everybody's talking about, how do you know when it's perfect? And there's always the delaying factor of wanting something to be perfect and then not wanting to show it to people if it isn't perfect. How do you sort of overcome that feeling of showing it to people and worrying that they're going to hate it?
You know what? You just do it.
Yeah.
And that feeling, I hate to break it to you, but it will probably never go away.
Yeah.
There will always be something, even though, and a lot of times it's stuff that the audience doesn't notice and has no idea what's going on and it's all in your head. But just do it.
Y'all are never satisfied.
Totally.
One thing.
There's always something that messes. Always something. It's always something.
Yeah.
I find something that helps is find the point you're trying to make, and then know that that's what you're going to be, the reason you're speaking to whoever you're finally showing it to. There's a point you're trying to get across. If you believe in that point, you will speak. And if you can't memorize, you might end up speaking your whole show from your heart.
Yeah.
But I would write it still.
Yeah.
You still
But I mean,
want
do
to
people
know it.
actually read their show?
I've seen people do it.
I have an idea for you that I can talk to. And also, I want to get back to when you talk about what did you get out of it. Yes, there can be I want to show on HBO, but then some other network asks you to write a pilot. Cool. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. But sometimes I need to do a one-woman show before I die is the reason. That could be the reason to do the show. And then by the end of it, you can see that, oh my God, I did it. Or I got to learn to work with other people. Or I got to learn to direct. So now's my time, right? This is a shorter piece. You can make what you're going to get out of it, whatever you want. And as my mentor taught me, it is in the doing that thing, you will accomplish it by the end. I mean, keep it, what's next for you? What do you need to do next in your life? And then your Fringe project can help you finish that goal.
Yeah, and don't forget why you're doing it, and you want to get this story out. You want to find the joy in creating it, and the joy in telling this story, and screw them if they don't like it. Fuck them. I mean, honestly, it's
Good advice.
You know what? There's gonna be someone who's gonna love your story, and there's gonna be someone who's
Right.
gonna hate your story.
Mhm.
Nobody likes everything, and you
Yeah.
can't please everyone.
Right.
And part of putting your story up in front of people is that, just that. And the same is gonna be true for you. You're gonna sit in an audience and someday you're gonna love something you see and someday you're gonna sit there like this. Well, that's how it is when people watch you too. Someone's gonna love it and someone's gonna hate it, and you have no control over that. And the only thing you can control is the fact that you put the pen to paper and you created the thing that you wanted to create. So if someone doesn't receive it the way you hoped they would receive it, oh well, that's too bad. It's okay. You still did it, and that's the point.
Right.
Or know who it was for. It was for somebody. It was for other parents who have kids who they're starting to see these weird symptoms in them. I wanted the show to be a gift for someone and help somebody at some point. And I just think most great solo shows always have a deep-seated thing where the writer really just wants to reach other people who are like this so that they don't have to suffer. But this could just be one piece of art in the world that tells them you're not alone.
Yeah,
Right?
and the most rewarding thing from that is someone coming up to you after or finding you on Facebook and saying, hey, me too, your show touched me. Like, I am going through that also. So that's the most rewarding part, not the running.
And what you got out of it is you connected with people.
And you told your story,
Yeah.
and it touched someone.
Told your story.
So now is time for the lightning round of questions, if there are any questions left. So if you have a question, will you raise your hand? Does anybody else have a question? Are we all done? Okay, one more question.
So more questions. You're talking, okay, so back to the directing thing, back to the artistic director, or, you know, whatever else you may need. Is there a list of, I imagine that some people need to be paid, some won't need to because they want to do it to collaborate or in exchange for something else or exposure or whatever. Does Fringe provide a list of resources?
We have all kinds of resources coming out of everywhere. But I would check out the Facebook group that Jen mentioned, that she moderates, and then also, come to these events and poke around, talk to these people after.
I will.
About that sort of thing. It's like, you gotta kind of get in there a little bit. I mean, we can guide you in the direction too, a little bit. There's always people on the site. You can kind of look at people that have directed, maybe send them a message. Say, hey, like, I heard you did a great show. Do you want to direct another show?
My husband and I just love to talk to the producers because we produce every year at Fringe. So, let me know. Drink coffee, hang out. Like, I'm happy to talk to whoever.
We don't have like a list of people that are like looking to direct a show, but we have a ton of people in the community that are always looking to direct a show.
Oh, yeah.
Anyone who's done Fringe is going to be happy to answer questions for you because they've all benefited from the same network of years.
Yes, one more. This is the last question, and then we're gonna be done.
So before you created your shows, were you ever in the question of like, oh, I could make this a web series, or I could just make this a blog, or maybe I'll make an ebook? And then how did you get to the final decision of like, no, this needs to be a solo show?
I started writing the show first, and then my first show that I did was just supposed to be, it started from like a 5-minute story at Story Salon, and then it took up a life of its own, and, 15 years later, I still bust that show out sometimes. So, for me, the story just came. But it's honestly, it's whatever you want it to be.
Cherise, I know you, because you started with film, right?
Yeah, it was the most realistic. It was the most doable that I could do myself on my own in a short amount of time. And that's how I realized that this was the best format for it. And now I'm thinking of turning it in. I've already wrote a pilot and taking it to another level and telling all the different stories. But yeah, it's containable.
Same for me, that it just, at its most basic, it is the best when told out loud, acted out. Now, it can be made into other things.
Great. So we do have another session that's coming in at 4 o'clock. If you guys want to mill around in here for a little while and chat with people, that is totally fine with me. And we also have down the street, there's Copper Still. It's down, if you go down to Beverly and turn left, there's Copper Still, and then there's like a Mexican restaurant that's sort of attached to it as like sort of an unofficial like gathering place if you guys want to head down there and start off this whole networking thing. You can do that now. You can also check out the recording of the video if you have any friends that are like, hey, you went to this thing? It's going to be on our YouTube channel as well. And just thank you guys all for coming and participating in this.